Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Grafana Office Hours. I am Nicole van der Hoeven, and I'd like to introduce these three people here. First, this one, who you may recognize.
Yes, Paul Balogh calling from Chicago at KubeCon.
Danielle, how about Danielle? We go down there.
Hello. Hello, I'm Daniel.
That's it? That's your introduction?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, hello, I'm Daniel. It's good enough. Okay, the most extended version. I work in Spain. I'm from Spain, and I work in product here at Grafana Labs.
All right, and Olha. Welcome to the stream. This is the first time we've had you on either of the office hours. So welcome. Who are you? What do you do?
Well, I'm Olha, obviously. I'm based in Ukraine, and I'm working as software engineer in Grafana Labs, just as you guys. And thank you for having me here.
Awesome. Well, we do have some announcements first. First, you can catch me and our colleague Marie Cruz at Agile Testing Days. We are going to be there on November 16th. We're talking about intersectionality in tech and DevRel. And if you want to come, you can join us. We will be in Potsdam, Germany. Also, another announcement is that we've been...
Uh-oh.
That happened.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Paul, continue where Nicole was.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Let's see. Is she locked? She's completely locked up, isn't she? Yeah. Well, so she and Marie are going to be, let's see, Potsdam, and then I've been at, it's I've been in Chicago for KubeCon North America, so that's been a blast. She's back.
I am back. Of course, that would happen just after pressing. Okay, I wanted to say we've been talking about Observability Con for the last few times, but this is the last time because on Tuesday, November 14 at 13:30 GMT, so 1:30 GMT, that's 2:30 CET. The keynote will be streamed live. And the thing is, if you sign up for it, then you'll also get notified on the on-demand sessions as they're available. So this is all completely free. Here is a blog post that talks a little bit about that. There's a lot of stuff coming, TraceQL stuff, talking a little bit more about Grafana Balogh, which is an eBPF auto instrumentation tool. So check that out.
Yeah, and it's not to be confused with my last name either, Balogh. It's
oh God!
But yeah,
you should change that next time. Well, today we're going to talk about two things. That's why we have two guests that are both experts in both, I think. The first is K6 Operator, a Kubernetes operator for K6 that lets you run distributed load tests from within your Kubernetes cluster, which is the only reason that we invited Paul, really, because he's a KubeCon. Pretty awkward for him not to.
This is my favorite project too. Operator, that's my favorite.
Aww. And then we're also going to be talking about private load zones, which is a Grafana Cloud K6 feature that builds on K6 Operator to let you run load tests on private infrastructure. So maybe we should back up a little bit first. And Danielle, since I just had you on the Spanish version of this, talking about what K6 is, can you give people a quick overview of what is K6 in the first place?
I like that. I'm having the same question in two languages, in 3 days. That's funny. So, so K6, what's K6? So K6 is an open source performance testing tool built for developers. Your tests are code, and it lets you very quickly test all your services or your APIs or your applications, everything you want to test, really. It's very easy to use. You can get started like in 5 minutes. You just upload it and you're ready to go. And it's, a very beautiful experience for a developer. to be able to write tests like that and test their services.
You make
That's,
it sound like some sort of transcendental spiritual
it's
experience.
beautiful, it's the best thing that has happened to me.
Aw.
So very cool.
Well, it's nice to hear the passion. Olha, can you talk about K6 Operator? What is it?
It's the tool that takes this transcendental experience one step further to Kubernetes space, where you can run K6 in distributed fashion on Kubernetes, obviously. And that's it, I suppose. That's the main point.
Okay, so K6 can already be run as this. You can already run distributed K6 load tests, but the easiest way to do that would be through Grafana Cloud K6. So K6 Operator is also another way to run distributed load tests. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works, Olha? Because I think you're the one that's worked on it the most. Is that right?
Yeah. I've been the maintainer of this project for almost 2 years, I think, by now. But in my opinion, it's not exactly correct to compare, because K6 Operator is open source tool. K6 Cloud is not. So in my mind, it's kind of like two separate worlds. Either you are a K6 Cloud user, and then you have the distributed test with K6 easily, or you are not, and then your only option is either make something on your own or use K6 Operator.
So, Paul, why is this your favorite project?
Kubernetes, duh. It's
So just anything Kubernetes, you're like, yep, favorite.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, because it's such a formative project to to be able to run these distributed load tests, K6. But no, it's I to me it's so cool to be able to just run that in a distributed fashion, just like what we have essentially in the the Grafana Cloud K6, where you can have it spread that load across multiple nodes. So it's very cool. But of course, the Kubernetes factor is that's the best.
As far as I just wanted to add that I remember that one of the most upvoted issues, I think, or commented out issues in K6 is actually distributed tests.
Yes.
So people always want distributed tests, but in K6 it's more about any kind of distributed test. In with K6 Operator, it's specific for Kubernetes.
Yeah, I think the distributed testing part of it, more than the Kubernetes part, is for me what's really important. To be fair, K6 on its own can already generate a lot of load, tens of thousands with a single instance, depending on, the exact specifications of your load generator, of course. But there are still a few reasons why you might want to run distributed tests. So for example, if you are testing something that's in production and it's already in production and it's like some sort of publicly accessible web app that could be accessed by anyone across the entire world, then it's not entirely realistic to have all of that, the test load generated from a single location. You probably do want some to kind of model the same behavior that you see in production. Can you all think of any other reasons why you might run distributed load tests?
Not to mention, if you're already using Kubernetes for a lot of your workloads, you may as well leverage your knowledge of Kubernetes already, and might as well just use that operator so it's running from a similar type of environment.
Yeah, and also the way you interact with it, right, is something native for people who are familiar with Kubernetes. Like Olga will touch in that, right? But use custom resource definitions, and you can just leverage all the tooling that you probably already have. So that's really good.
Yeah, I think it's that consistency, right? Of, we're trying to get to a point where the application code is maybe kept in the same repository as the test code as well, maybe even in the same language. So it's kind of along those lines where if you're already managing everything on Kubernetes, then it's like a no-brainer to add K6 on there. Danielle, do you want to talk about how it functions, like what parts go where and all that?
I think the person who should dive into how the operator works is Olga, because she's a maintainer. So
Okay.
we'll let her speak about this. Yeah.
Well, that was a very nice way of saying you don't know. Olha, do you know?
Ouch. Usually Nicole's only
that
mean to
hurts,
me.
you know? Yeah, that was offensive. Okay.
Oh, Danielle's old hat now, so I can be mean to him. Olha, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Perhaps I should share the screen now.
Sure.
Because
There you go.
Yeah, I wanted to. Okay, I will show you probably the example straight away because the question sounded this way. So the most basic example looks like this. This is obviously the customer source definition. So K6 operator basically introduces a customer source definition called test run, which has a lot of different parameters that you can use to specify what kind of test run you want to have. Once you do that, you create the object. This is description of the object. You create this object, and the operator watches for those and bootstraps the basically load generation, which will use the test that you specified over here and run the test. Once it finishes, it can be cleaned up by the operator as well, and that's it. So that's like the very brief overview. There are a lot of details, of course, but yeah, this is a brief overview.
Can we talk about like some things on the conceptual level? Like it's called K6 operator. What exactly is an operator?
Oh, right. Well, I wouldn't say that this is a very strict definition, but quite often people, when they say it's operator, they mean the application that runs on Kubernetes that monitors the customer source definitions and acts on them. So there is a logic behind Kubernetes resources, like they must be reconciled by certain rules, and the operator is the application that implements that logic for specific customer source definition.
Yeah, so kind of like the operator is kind of a controller that watches for these test run instances to be created, and then has the custom logic to act upon those resources, I guess, as they're created.
Yeah, perhaps I should have added that customer source definition is like the way to extend Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is like you install Kubernetes, you have default types like deployment, stateful set, right? Pods, all of that. You have that. You can build quite a lot of things with that. But if you want something more custom, you define your own type, and that is the customer source definition.
Yeah.
Okay. So let
that's
me
definitely one of the cool things with Kubernetes. Sorry.
No.
It is extensible. So I mean, it provides that framework so that if as you have new things, you can actually add them and make use of the kubectl client. Everybody was waiting. How is he going to pronounce it?
Yeah.
Usually I say kubectl. I do prefer kubectl.
You went there, then you hedged.
I got nervous.
Right.
I got nervous.
So let me restate it to see if I understand, and you all can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like the Kubernetes custom resource is an object, which is defined in the definition, that is a way to extend the API that Kubernetes already comes with. And then the Kubernetes operator, oh no, you clearly upgraded to Sonoma. We're going to be seeing
You can tell I
this
upgraded my Mac.
Yeah, yes. And then the custom resource objects are then controlled by the Kubernetes operators.
Yeah, the operator itself, or this controller that Paul mentioned, right, is able to watch and react to these events, so it can do things. As if you were like a real operator, right? Let's say that you want to do things in the cluster. In this case, there is something doing these things for you, right? Like doing the real operations, right? And reacting.
So what you're showing here, Olha, is the definition of the object, and the object is a test run. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And it's declarative. As you see, it's a YAML file, it's declarative, so it doesn't act on its own. Someone has to read this and act on this. And that someone is the operator application.
Okay. And how do we get to this point? Can you talk about how you install K6 operator? Because as I understand it, this is just the object. So where does the operator come in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to use the opportunity to make a small advertisement of our improvements. So about installation, previously we basically were installing with this. And this is quite a heavy command that doesn't always work out of the box, especially it creates manifests, it builds the image, it builds the customized bundle, and then applies it. This doesn't always work on any setup, so like there are issues in Windows and so on. So the advertisement is that we improved that significantly recently in previous months. So the first way to install the operator now is with bundle. So as you see, it's just one file that is stored on our repository. It's generated on every release and a release candidate. You download it, kubectl apply, and that's it. And you have it running. You have the operator in your cluster, and you can create your test run. The second way that we added was the Helm. So we have the Helm chart, long awaited, and it's published to Grafana Helm repository. So this one, the same thing. The commands are very similar to anyone who uses Helm. Add the repository and install it, and go and create your own test. So just a few commands and a minute, 2 of your time, I guess.
Yeah, I just wanna mention that we didn't have these both methods until very recently. Olga put lots of work in them, and they are, I think, one of the oldest issues that we have in the repo. Like the first thing people asked for when they saw the operator was, "Can I install it in another way?" And it took us a lot of time, but now it's.
I don't understand why people don't like make files.
If it was, a simple makefile, it was okay, right? But this one was crazy.
Yes.
So yeah, really, really good work from Olga there, and now it's really a pleasure to install the operator. It's very easy.
Yeah, definitely. And I've been spreading news all throughout KubeCon about the operator being available now with the Helm chart. So we'll have to watch we'll have to see if I did my job. We'll have to watch the chart repository and see how many hits it's getting.
Nice.
The amazing thing is that the Helm chart was actually, a lot of the work was done by the contributor. Several contributors, so like several people were helping the main contributor.
Yes.
And that's like amazing work.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
I think Nicole is gone again. Like,
Is she locked up again?
She didn't like the installation.
I just thought she was very mesmerized by the talk of Helm charts.
Totally fair. I mean, it's a very deep topic.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. But yeah, so I guess picking up since Nicole seems to be kind of frozen. We lost her completely now too. So so like with the now that we had the bundle deployment and that, I mean, I'm guessing that would you recommend that everyone really use the Helm deployment method, or should purists still stick with the make file and customize and all that?
Definitely no. At least so the Helm is very new. And like even this week, I merged the contribution for the Helm, adding a new option. So there are a lot of ways to use the operators, a lot of setups, and it's like next to impossible to think of those. And obviously, none of us thought about that setup. specific, and the nice person, nice contributor added that functionality. So the chart is evolving. I think there will be other things to find. So yeah, if someone finds something, please come and open the peers and issues and so on. But yeah, it's working. It's pretty stable, I think, and it can be used straight away. And bundle, of course. I just run the bundle command to show you the output.
Yeah, this is lovely. Every time I install the operator with bundle, like something just, I smile inside or something like that. Like it's so easy, and you can also upgrade like that, and it just kind of works. It's really...
Yeah, upgrades are much more easier now. So previously it was a mess. It was very easy to make mistakes. People were making mistakes, and now it's just run the apply like this one, or a Helm upgrade, and it should work.
Perfect. Oh, and Nicole's back. Looks like we were just going over. We did a bundle installation.
And is that the way that you would suggest? Like, is that the best way to get started?
That's a flashback.
Did he already ask that?
We just talked about that, yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We can emphasize it a little bit more again. So it's worth emphasis.
It's okay. It's Friday. People will understand.
Exactly.
It's completely okay.
My internet is just messing up, and it's done with the work week as well.
Yeah, I really expected my connectivity to be bad from the hotel here, but it seems to be stable.
Yeah. Well, why don't you go on and take over, Paul?
Oh, sure. So the next thing is so all these different types that are installed, like from the bundle there, what are some of the things, that are involved with the installation of the operator? What are some of these resources that are created? Should we go over a little bit some of those things?
Yeah, sure. So basically, right now we are installing 3 types. You can see them here. 3 customer source definitions. It must be noted that test trans and K6, that's basically the same kind of definition. So there are 2 of them, but they're using the same code, the same logic. So they should work exactly the same. It's that way because K6 is kind of historical. That's what K6 operator used until this summer, or almost autumn. And we are going to deprecate it probably in the next year or so. So big request for everyone to switch to test trans. It works the same way, just it's not going to be deprecated, so you won't get an issue with it. And private load zones is of course the new CRD customer source definition. That's why we are here.
Yeah, yes. And I guess with the CRD, would you say that that's pretty much the API for those objects? That's the definition of what is available for configuration?
Yeah, absolutely. You can, for instance, write your own client that will be pinging your Kubernetes cluster, getting these objects, and doing with them whatever you need, or creating them, for instance. So it's totally valid in Kubernetes space.
Yeah, and then so everybody, you heard it here too. Don't use the K6 resource type. That's old. Use test run now. And we got a question that came in here. Let's see. But how does K6 pods dealing with the noisy neighborhood problem, where K6 pods are fighting the resources with other pods on the same node?
Good question.
Yeah, very good question. It doesn't. So it will try to schedule these pods, and if it won't work, then it's stuck. So this is one of the things that actually is in our priorities to improve this workflow, so it's not stuck indefinitely, so that it will be cleaned up by the K6 operator. But right now, that's what will happen.
Yeah, we'll have a separate flag, right? Like
Yeah.
that you can put in the custom resource definition. And if you put that and the condition is not fulfilled, I suppose what Olga said just happens. But if not, everything will be scheduled, in any place that Kubernetes wants. So,
Well, I think some of this can be addressed with best practices for working with Kubernetes in general, like by setting up resource limits.
You can
So
set
if you set resource limits for some of these pods, then you'll.
she's down again. But yeah, I understand what she means.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest limits, but maybe requests. Like if you're able to put the requests, probably Kubernetes or limits. Like probably Kubernetes itself will try to schedule them in different places because maybe not enough resources are available. But still, the experience is not top notch right now. So we're kind of planning, as Olga said, on improving it.
So yeah, you will do something like this. So runner is the load generator. That's the pods, the name for the pods that will be running the test. And you can specify quite a few of the Kubernetes standard Kubernetes fields like resources. So resources, then request, and so on. So you do this, and if you not allow several pods, then you don't use separate, but use the resources, and you will have several load generators on one node. But that depends on the node, of course, and on the task. You want to achieve because if you want to distribute, you might want this option be separate because you want to distribute the test from different nodes from different IPs.
Yeah, so
because with the separate, you can only have a single pod on each worker. Is that correct then?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have if you're trying to do a parallelism of let's say 10, but then your cluster only has 5 nodes in it, obviously then, and you have the separate true, that's not going to work, right?
Yeah, it's going to be stuck unless, for example, your cluster auto-scales, right? The resources will be just in pending state, and it will be stuck.
If they will have to scale it all. Otherwise, another thing you can pass to the runner is, of course, this stuff and this stuff.
Yeah.
This also has the same format as Kubernetes pods usually take. It is being passed to those pods, and if it's possible to schedule, it will schedule.
Okay. Yeah, and then I guess if we talk a little bit about too, we're getting into the architecture a little bit. Like, so there's the concept of the runner, and then there's also there's like the starter or initializer. Aren't there like 3 different types of that can be configured separately, but can you kind of explain how those actually work? So like when the K6 resource is actually created into the system and then the operator picks it up, what are the process that happens from that point?
Okay, so there are by default there would be at least 3 pods created. There will be 3 pods in case we have here parallelism 1. That's just one load generator, so one runner. If we have more than one, then for instance 4, then there will be 6 pods generated. So it's parallelism plus 2. Those 2 are initializer and starter, as Paul said. So initializer is it's also running K6, just like runner, but it doesn't run the test. It just kind of validates it. There is a K6 inspect command. You may want to look it up if you'd like. So it inspects the code, checks that it is valid, and if it's valid, then it will proceed to the next stage. And in the next stage, that's creation of the runners, whichever number you specify here, plus starter. Starter is not K6, doesn't use K6 image. It uses the, I forgot how it's called, but it has the curl, and basically that's it. It's pretty small. It runs the curl command to start the test once all the runners are ready. So it's a rather nice trick, I think, because If you don't do that, runners will start at different points of time. So for instance, once you have scheduled the first pod, and it started generating your load, started testing your website. Then in half a minute only, you have the second runner, and then it starts also kicks in with its own traffic. So it would be a bad testing result. That's not what you want. You want them all to start at the same time, and that will start.
Okay, so the initializer pod will actually inspect the script, the test script, that using the K6 inspect command that's available on the K6 binary. And then it'll evaluate that and make sure that everything's correct with your script. And then it also looks at the amount of parallelism, right? And then it says, okay, I'm going to create this many runners. And then the starter will say, after those pods are created, that'll be the trigger to say, okay, everybody start.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I did just want to say, if it's okay to quickly go back, what I was getting at was that you can use resource limits and requests in Kubernetes to kind of make sure that certain pods won't go beyond the memory or CPU utilization. But then that can also be kind of tricky if you don't know how much you should put on there. So there is going to be some kind of like trial period where you experiment with what works and what doesn't work. You can also, if you already know what might take up a lot of memory or CPU or whatever, then you can use the affinity or anti-affinity rules so that you never have those pods on the same node. And that's just a way for any testers as well. Like, this is how you can do static testing on apps on Kubernetes clusters before even actually deploying it. You can already check the configuration. Sorry, I just wanted to say that because I was cut off.
You were frozen up. Well, I mean, so I guess now that we do have already you installed the operator with the bundle, should we run through an example to see how the initializer and starter and all that work?
Yeah. Okay. So this is our installed operator. So let me find the folder first. I'm there. Sorry. So here I have the script scenarios. It's called scenarios. It doesn't matter what it is. It is pretty large. I copied it from one of our demos, but it doesn't really matter what it is. What I wanted to point out here is that before running on the K6 operator, it's very much recommended to try running it like this.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Good to call that out.
And in this case, it fails, as everyone can see.
Yes. And this is why you do that.
I can attest it is very difficult to kind of figure out what a problem is going on if you have a script issue once you're running it in Kubernetes. It's like, then which pod to look at? Do you look at the initializer pod logs to see if it was a problem with the script itself, or all the runners?
Yeah. So this specific script, you need to pass the URL, because otherwise it doesn't know what to load. It tries to load some local host, and yeah. So this is the solution, and we need to put it into our test run. So this is about load generators. So I do runner and specify the environment variable. We specify it the same way we specify it usually, so something like this. Then also, just for completeness sake, we could also write something like arguments. So this is the arguments to K6. This is not arguments to test run. So for instance, I don't want to run teardown function. Do this. Or I want to tag something. I do, if I remember the syntax correctly, it should be something like this.
Yeah.
Or
So
maybe we
this
want a
will-
custom output.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or custom output, which would be like this, and something here, which might depend on extension, and extension you will need to specify here with image, Docker image that we have. So in this way, you configure it like a building these building blocks. You configure whatever test you need, and let's run it now. So I do kubectl apply. It's in the folder this one, and called I think test. Yeah. As you see, we created the object. So this tells us that we have created the custom shell definition. Let's check if it works.
Oh, I like that you're using K9S. That's my favorite
Oh,
tool.
nice.
Yeah, it's really nice.
So something might be off. Something might be off, and I think I know what is off.
Yep.
Yeah, I know what is off. Because this is a full demo from the beginning, so I didn't have anything on the cluster. I actually forgot. Sorry for that. I think I forgot to do some stuff. So I have this script, scenarios.js, but I forgot to create it. So yeah, sorry. Live demos.
Yep, exactly.
No, this is good. This is realistic, right?
Yeah, config map. As you see, we need config map. We need it under the name. By the way, let's make it even more a bit interesting, maybe. So, for instance, quite often we don't want to work in default namespace, so we do something like this, right? Let it be called test scenarios.js. Okay, so now I create a namespace, right? Now I create the config map. From this file, it must be the correct name, otherwise it won't work. Typo. And I did another thing incorrectly. I need to specify the fancy testing namespace. Yeah, this is correct. So we created config map in the namespace we just created. Now we need to recreate this test in that namespace. Okay, we can do it another way. And now I reapply this object because I'm creating it now in another namespace. In the namespace fancy testing. Now, theoretically, it should work, I think. This is more realistic, but yeah, try demos. Oh, yeah, now it works.
Nice.
Yeah. So you
and
have
this is just the standard operator now. So we haven't even gotten to the private load zones yet.
Okay. Yeah, we're almost done, I think. So you see initializer, that's the script that the pod that just inspects our script, and that's it. Then we have the starter, that one just makes REST calls to all of our runners. And there are 4 runners, as you see. This one, you see it ended with error. We can check the logs to see why it ended, because thresholds. Thresholds are working on some pods, and on some they don't. And that's why you should use K6 Cloud, because K6 Cloud can aggregate all of this stuff and make the threshold unified.
And now, if anybody would run a K6 test and then, it would appear to be stuck, would you say that looking at the initializer logs is probably the best way to hunt down any issues?
In some cases, so yeah, I first check check any if there are any errors here, especially if they are in the initializer.
Mm-hmm.
If they couldn't, for instance, if they couldn't be scheduled, look into why it couldn't be scheduled. And if all of that seems to be correct, then it makes sense to look into the operator itself, which is here. It's also
All right. But yeah, so now what are the private load zones now? Now that we know the operator.
Operator is pretty nice, but I think private load zones are nice too. So what's this private load zone thing? Maybe for that, just mentioning what's Grafana Cloud K6 for people who don't know. So okay, I don't work in marketing, but I like to call Grafana Cloud K6, like K6 best friend, in the sense like it's not like other cloud offerings that replaces the tool. In this case, is natural progression. It empowers K6 with many cool things, like the ability to quickly store the results and visualize it, like being able to organize your tests. Like it gives you like this really good framework for your team to actually start testing. So it's not like you are replacing K6, you are still using K6, your same scripts, everything works the same. It's just you get all these great benefits. And this is where private load zones comes in. So maybe I will share and we can see a tiny demo, if that makes sense.
Yay.
So this is Grafana Cloud K6. It's inside Grafana Cloud. It's this app. We have our own app. And I have a bunch of projects with a bunch of tests. So I also have a test that is very similar to the one that Olga was running. It's also testing this Quick Fix app. And historically, you have had like two ways of integrating K6 with the cloud. You could use like K6 run, as Olga was doing, name of my script, that is example.js. You could last this, that is --out equals cloud. And this means that my test is running locally, but as you can see here, I get a link to the cloud that if I click on it, I'm going to be able to see the results streamed in real time from my CLI. But the test is still running on my local computer. So it will take a bit because the test is still starting. But this is the first option that we have had for a while. But we also have the option of, okay, I don't want to run the test in my computer. I want to, let you guys run it in the cloud, like in a bunch of computers that we have on top of AWS. So you could do that just by, instead of doing K6 run, doing K6 cloud, a name of your script. In this case, when I do it, you can see that it's no longer running. It's doing some magic to actually run this test, in our cloud. So we bootstrap the instances and we get everything up and running to actually be able to run your test. So actually, this one will take a bit more of time to start because we're actually, provisioning all the instances and all those bits, and it's going to run on our own servers. So this is what we have until now. But there is now one new mode, let's say, of execution, right, apart from those two, and it's that we have seen that lots of people really want, for example, to test internal services, right? Services that run maybe inside of some Kubernetes cluster, or maybe you want to test some database, some queue that are not really exposed to the public, because in this case, it needs to be exposed to the public, right? For our runners to actually be able to reach your endpoint. So we have these private load zones that it's just, as Olga mentioned before, just another thing, another custom resource definition we have in the open source operator. So once you have done this installation that Olga did, but we have here a tab for it. Oh, by the way, did you see results? How cool they are? Oh, in real time. So this is like all useful information that we feel, right, that you should see about your test in real time. And also we provide here aggregations. All this is dynamic depending on what your script is using. So if you are using HTTP, it will be different than if you are using browser or other things. Okay, sorry, I got derailed. So if you come here to manage, you can see load zones. We have a section for it. We provide a bunch of load zones that are like the public ones. The one that, for example, my test is running right now. I think it's one from the United States. But I also have this option of private load zones. So as I said, once you install the operator, we already covered this. Let's not cover it again. You just need to create a token. We have here, tokens in Grafana Cloud K6. you need to put it in your Kubernetes cluster. So you create like a secret inside Kubernetes with the token. And then you create a custom resource definition. Yeah, once again. But this time, instead of test run, it will be private load zone. You create it. You can attach a namespace to it where you want to run the tests. You associate it with a specific token. And then you can set how much you want each load generator, right, to take. And once you have done that, it will appear here. The load zone, this private load zone will be online. It will be active. And everyone using Grafana Cloud Key 6 can run tests inside that load zone just very easily. Adding one line to their script is, the UX is really good, I think. So they just need to do this. So you can see here that in my example, right, I was testing something public, and my options block didn't have anything here regarding load zones. In my new one, I'm testing something internal. So I have this private load zone deployed in a Kubernetes cluster in some VPS in the cloud. And you can set I'm something new. I'm adding distribution. And I'm putting the name of the private load zone where I want to run my test. Actually, I have it open here in our VS Code. So this is the other computer. It's remote, and I can see the bots will see how they get created in the future. And only thing I need to do, same way I did before, this is cloud. I'm going to use this new script that we're running that private load zone, and that's it. Now we should be able to switch to my remote computer, and this in some time, hopefully, should show that some pods will appear. And my test will be actually running in my private Kubernetes cluster that is running somewhere. As you can see, some things are popping up. This initializer that we spoke about before, and now the test will start running. And if we go to the cloud, I don't know how to use a Mac. Okay, here. I'm a Linux guy. Okay. If we go to the cloud, you will see that the test is running. It will also take a bit for the data to arrive, but this time, it's running in my private load zone, in this Kubernetes cluster, and that's really the experience. It's very easy to set up. You don't need to expose anything. You just need to create this, this custom resource definition, and then it just works. As you can see, it's really cool.
Okay. And now, so this is available from the cloud, or the Grafana Cloud K6. Now, can you do a private load zone if you're only using the free account?
Yeah, so all tiers are able to use private load zones. Our free tier, I will say that is very good in the sense that we give lots of view hour for testing. And, it's very easy to create and completely free. So yeah, they can try it. Everyone who creates an account will have access to this feature.
Okay, and so I guess that the what is it, the 500 virtual user hour restriction won't apply because it's running on your own infrastructure. So that's on your own dime, right? As they say.
No, not really.
No?
Because we really feel that that's not true, Paul. So in Grafana Cloud K6, we give 500 virtual user hours to every user to consume each month, and it renews in the next month. And these view hours are consumed depending on how long your test is, right, and how many views it has. And actually, all types of tests consume the same amount of view hour. So if you're running locally and streaming to the cloud, if you're running in the cloud, or if you are running private load zones, because really the cost of infra is tiny compared with the other costs and the value that the cloud provides, right? That's really how we feel. So it's just
okay.
The same experience for all three. Right now, the pricing is just the same.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't realize that. I was thinking that since it was running on your own resources, that it essentially didn't count just to track the metrics. Okay.
I think it's also because it is the metrics. A lot of the other products as well, they're priced based on how much how much analysis and storage and so on we have to do.
Right.
So K6 is the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Danielle, can you talk about why someone might want to use a private load zone? Like, why not just use one of the AWS ones that we already have set up?
I think I mentioned this, Nicole, before. Not sure if you were offline. But yeah, main reason I think is for testing internal services. So, these days, usually maybe just post one endpoint, right? But under the hood, maybe there are multiple services, right? With tons of APIs, tons of things running inside Kubernetes. So with this, it makes it very easy to not having to expose anything right to the outside, and just being able to test all these internal services. So I would say that's the main benefit, right? Testing internal services, testing dev environments, testing everything that is really, under this private network. Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like a security thing, right? Sometimes people, it's not just that the infrastructure is on private, I mean, and that the application is on private infrastructure. Sometimes it will never be published, like for other reasons. Maybe that even the test results, maybe they don't want to have that leaked because it's confidential information that they're accessing, or what, for whatever reason. So it's really handy for testing behind firewalls too, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
use one of these public ones, the AWS load zones. The only other way is if you could if you could get the IP addresses, or use an elastic IP, and then you'd have to put that on an allow list. But
Yeah.
elastic IPs cost, and then otherwise you'd have to do a whole range, which isn't really secure either.
Yeah, and it's not really good, right? And if you are not using HTTPS because maybe it's an internal service, you also need to add that, right? You don't want to expose this data and all that. So yeah, it's very tricky. And this feature, the cool thing is that it works in any Kubernetes cluster. It doesn't matter where you're running it. Like, you could be running it on some on-premise machine, rack server that you have. It could be on my laptop. I sometimes do the demo, just from my laptop. Because you don't need to expose it to the internet. It's actually the private load zone that is reaching out to our cloud and asking for work. It actually uses a pattern really similar to Kubernetes, right? Like asking, in this loop for work and trying to do things. So yeah, it's very cool.
So tell us the bad things. Like, what can't it do?
Nothing is bad.
Are there
Can it make me
limitations?
coffee?
So bad things, it's not a bad thing, but this is still not generally available in the sense that everyone can access it, right? But we have been taking it slow. Like, we released this just a few weeks ago, and everyone can try it, but some bad things can happen. So maybe that's the main bad thing, right? That we're still working on it, and getting
So it's still kind of beta.
exactly, yeah, getting it on a better state, right, for doing a more bigger and general availability release in January. But actual product limitations. So it really has a few. One that a lot of people expect and it's just not there. It's being able to use multiple load zones. So when you are using our public load zones, you can, for example, run the test in 20 of them, right? And the test will get split between them. If you're using private load zone, you can only use one private load zone. So that's, I would say, one of the bigger limitations. Also, the new browser tests that we have that are in beta aren't supported either yet. So that's another limitation. And I will say a couple of more, but they are just tiny compared with those ones. Maybe, for example, logs are not yet exposed to the cloud, but they aren't either when you are running K6 Cloud like locally and exporting to the cloud. So it's by design, but also we're thinking about changing it. But yeah, not sure if Olga can think about something more missing, but yeah.
Just one more limitation about one private load zone. So it's per cluster.
Per cluster.
For instance, 5 clusters, you can run 5 per private load zone without issue. So it's 1 per cluster. One more thing about limitations would be environment variables.
Exactly. Yeah, in the cloud we have support for environment variables. So those are not supported yet. But all these limitations are really like temporal, right? It's not like we don't plan actually to implement them. It's just that we wanted to ship something that is small, that it works, and that it already generates value. And we're at that point, right? So yeah, it will keep improving during the following months. Yeah.
So when should we look forward to V3?
V3?
Kidding.
Yes.
I always have to troll, you know that.
maybe for context, in case someone, because we spoke about private loadings like 2 years ago, Nicole, 1 year ago, you invited somewhere, right, to speak about them.
Yes.
So this was a feature in our old app, because we had our own app before, moving lots of things to Grafana Cloud K6. And this feature was very, very different from this, let's say second iteration. Even if the name was the same, it only worked on AWS, and it has, it was also not very straightforward to set up. It was, completely different. It didn't work with Kubernetes. So, yeah, this is version 2, but it's mostly, something completely different. So maybe it's just not version 2, it's something else.
So is that the big differentiator between V2 and V1 is that V2 is Kubernetes based?
Yeah,
and therefore
it has been
more cool.
Yeah, it has been created, from scratch with Kubernetes in mind, on top of the Kubernetes operator. I think that's the bigger change. Also, it's easier just to get started with it.
Just one thing I wanted to add, that with version 1, you needed to spend at least like half an hour just to set it up. So it can be done, but that's your cost. Here it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And also, if I remember correctly, the way that it worked when I covered it then was that it couldn't be completely set up by a person, by an end user. It needed support to come in and do things on the back end, and it was kind of not so great. This is all like an end user could do this. You don't need us to do it. You don't even need to have a paid account to do it.
Yeah, you don't need anything. You just need to go to manage load zones, follow the instructions. We also have really, really good docs around it. You can get up and running in, as Olga said, 5 minutes or even less, right? It's just running like 5 commands. So it's very cool.
So I have a couple of questions. You mentioned that browser tests aren't supported yet. Now, is that because because you'd need Chromium as well, or is it something to do with extensions?
Yeah, so kind of both. But browser is no longer extension, so it's part of K6.
Yes, experimental module.
Yeah. So that should be okay, right? But when you run a test in the cloud, we actually have like a browser farm, and we are giving you a piece of like a browser for your test and all those bits. And we just didn't take the time to implement something like that in private load zones. Like we will need to spawn a Chrome instance, as you said, right? And use it with the test. So yeah, it's something that we'll need to do at some point in the future to support that.
And then you both mentioned that you can only run one private load zone per cluster. Can you run one private load zone and then a handful of public load zones in the same test?
No, you cannot.
Also
mix
no.
at this
Okay.
point. Yeah. This was we could have gone that route, but we felt that there wasn't like lots of value, in the sense that most people just wanted to run or public or private, right? And it was very hard to support both at the same time. So for the first iteration, we just decided, to try to cater like the 95% use case maybe. But we have that in mind to try maybe in the future to support more private load zones, or a mix, or things like that. Yeah, it could be an option in the future.
Okay.
So, Olha, what about extensions?
I would say that extensions are also kind of a limitation, but they're limitation in K6 Cloud as well, as in you are limited to either K6 or now K6 with browser, and that's it. So we do plan to work on that, but stay tuned.
To be clear, this is a limitation of private load zones because it's on the cloud, right? It's not a limitation of K6 operator, which can accept different images. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, it looks fast. We have lots of limitations. But
No, we have to
but,
call these
like
things out.
I know, but like yeah, we are really happy with the first iteration, really, because with the customers that have been trying it and seeing, like, it covers that 95% use case. So I really want to get into these, different use cases and try to get more coverage for private load zones. But yeah.
Well, now, if people want to see, like, do we have like a publicly available roadmap to see, if they have a issue or they're curious to see multiple private load zones being run, from one execution? I mean, is there somewhere that can track that?
I will just say, following, when you register in the cloud, we send you a newsletter on your email every K6 release, listing the important stuff in the open source, the important stuff in the cloud. That's, I think, the best way to track things, right? So just, sign up for an account, try it. And if it's not good enough yet, maybe we'll send you an email in the future, right?
There we go.
So,
and make sure it doesn't go to your spam folder, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Any other ways to get a hold of you? Any recommended reading and such?
Yeah, I'll have a page in the docs that is really good around private load zones. Yeah, sorry, Olga, I cut you off. You were going to speak.
No, I was going to agree with you.
Okay, yeah. we're in line. So, yeah, I will say that I will link it to you, Paul, and you can post it.
I already have it in the comments, and it's also linked in the description on YouTube down below.
Look at that.
That was amazing.
Nicole is on it always. Well, I think we're out of time. How should people get a hold of you, Daniel? Do they come to you directly and say, "Hey, I need this stuff. Send that newsletter out"?
Yeah, I'm in the community Slack, both of Grafana, of K6, so people can reach me out there, or at, my email is also on my profile. So any feedback about this, we're more than happy to chat about it, or the operator in general. Like, we love when people create issues, give feedback, and just chat about the open source or the cloud part. So any feedback is really welcome.
Awesome. Yeah. Olha, any parting words to give folks?
Please try it out, at least the open sourcing and the maybe K6 Cloud as well, because you won't regret it, I think.
I also wanted to say before we close, we're hiring. If you think we're cool and you want to work with us, click on this link. There are a few positions available for K6 in particular. I mean, there's also a lot for the wider Grafana Labs company, but because it's relevant, there's a position for the K6 core team and for synthetic monitoring, which is also tangential to K6 and uses K6 for some of the stuff. Paul, what are you doing next week on Grafana Office Hours?
Next week? Oh, it's going to be cool. We're going to be talking about test containers. So using you can create your unit test that'll actually spin up a Docker container and then set up your test environment that you want to test against. And then, one of our developers has actually contributed a module for K6, so we can run K6 tests from inside a test container. So that's going to be cool. Should definitely join us.
All right. Thank you both for coming on. And thank you everyone for watching. And sorry about my connection issues.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everybody. And try out
Bye,
private
everyone.
load zones and K6 operator.
Yeah.